Cranky Live Sports Talk, where passion meets action.
Hey sports fans, I am Kranky, and this is the Cranky Live Sports Talk, the podcast where we dive deep into the hottest topics, the biggest games, and the most controversial moments in sports.
Whether it's football, basketball, track and field, cricket, or soccer, we've got you covered with expert analysis, insider interviews, and unfiltered opinions.
Join me as I chat with the biggest names in sports, get exclusive insights and stories you won't hear anywhere else.
Cranky Live Sports Talk is where you can hear the real talk, the hard-hitting questions, and the hottest takes.
So, if you're a true sports fanatic, you don't want to miss out, subscribe now to the Cranky Live Sports Talk on YouTube and hit that bell icon to never miss an episode.
Cranky Live Sports Talk, where sports come alive. Subscribe today.
I apologize. I'm having some challenges here. Give me 1 second. I apologize. I'm having some challenges here. I'm even hearing myself. My iPad is loud. Give me 1 second, people. I'll get to you in a minute when I straighten this out. I thought I had this all straightened out. I set the thing up and it's acting up for some reason. All right, let me do this first. That's better. All right, good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. How are you doing? Crodme, R.R. Paul Watkins, Lee Young, Drew Ross, bless up. Odell, R&R, back up. How you doing? How you doing? I bought a mic today, you know something, because I'm not home, people. I'm on the road. So I bought a mic. I bought a standard. I almost bought a whole different package, actually. I was going to do it by connecting my headset directly to my computer, but I thought it'd be less professional to do so. And by the way, I don't want any complaints about people coming to the chat, and the request for liking the video is annoying, because then I'm gonna get annoyed because I spent all this time trying to get together for this video. So I think it should be a good show, actually. There's a lot to talk about. A couple of you in the chat had reached out to me with sending me some information about the interview done on SportsMax by Rudolph Speid. I don't know the SportsMax anchors. I've seen them quite a bit, but I don't know their names. And I listened to the interview, and we plan to play it. Someone also sent me something where Maverick was using a term which many of you, if you watch my channel, would know I've been using. So I would also touch upon that. But I also have some other points I'm going to touch upon before we jump into this, into those two segments. And I also have people don't ask me what happened. This thing is just beyond annoying. Beyond annoying. Let me see if I can fix this. My system is crashing quite a bit nowadays for some reason. I'm trying to use a virtual background. It's not working. My system is crashing for some reason because I mentioned this the other day. My internet keeps on crashing. So I have to delete my Chrome and reinstall it. I'm not sure what's happening. So as I start a show, it crashes, and then I go back in and it crashes again. It's been crashing for a little while now. I hadn't done a show in the last couple of days, so I will have to go in and probably delete it and reinstall it, or do something because it's just annoying. Yeah, I know it's good now, but it's beyond annoying actually. It's beyond annoying. And the where I am is not the most lit apartment. But anyway, let's keep going. So I want to talk about a couple of things. One is Reggae Boyz are on the move. I won't spend a lot of time on those. Mother still, as you know, is going to what? Stockport, whatever the name is. I thought he should go to the championship. I know QPR and some of the teams were looking at him. Maybe surprised he chose to stay in good evening, Twain, and good evening, Ty, to stay in League One. Now, obviously, the team is going to be where they are pretty well stacked. They have money, and they're pretty ambitious. But I think if you're a footballer, just like you see some players decide not to go to, for example, the Saudi league, because even though they're making much more money, because they want to play against the best players. Bless up the girls, them the girls, them steak. You sure don't use that name, you? Oh. First try resetting your browser to its default setting before. Okay, I'll do that for uninstalling. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of things saved on my browser, so that's a little bit annoying. I don't know what happened, why it's crashing so much. So it'd be interesting to see where Mothersill ends up actually. Not where he ends up, but how he does this year. I mean, he had about 12 goals and 11 assists last year. Half of these goals are penalties though, so he needs to improve on his scoring from open play. But I love that he has a lot of assists, which shows he's an unselfish player. And that's important when you play a team, especially when we have good offensive players. Bobby Reid has gotten relegated. Obviously, he went from Fulham to Leicester, so he's going to be in the championship. Our entire midfield is going to be in the championship. John Russell will probably move up to the championship. I know he's talking some teams now. And then I assume Hayden will leave Newcastle. He's back home from loan and probably go to the championship also. That's up Conrad. So the entire midfield may be in the championship, at least what I'm going to deem to be the starting midfield. And then Mikel Antonio still doesn't have a team because West Ham didn't renew his contract. West Ham now has Potter. I think if David Moyes was there, he probably would still get a contract because David loved those big, strong forwards who are bustling. I think Potter is a little more refined coach, more contemporary coach, so may not find him to be as useful in the role as you would like him to be. Right? So that should be interesting to see what happens to Antonio, especially coming off a really bad injury. It'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of how he what teams he goes to. Will he be in the championship also? Is most of our team going to be a championship team when you think about the number of players now who may be out of contract or are changing roles actually? It should be interesting times. No, Lee Young, I didn't install any extensions. At least I don't. You know what? I shouldn't say that. Maybe I did and don't recognize that I did. And this is so sad because I had my thing all set up, people, with pictures and all that, and now I gotta go revisit all of this nonsense. It's just very, very, very annoying. Past annoying, actually. I gotta go search through and figure out all the stuff that I supposedly have had and where they are, but we'll muddle through it actually. So what do I have to talk about? I have a question for you guys. I have a question. Yeah, Damari also is going to be championship. So you're right about that, actually. Let me try to pull up some stuff, people, before I go further. I'll pull them up and take them down. Yeah, let me remove them. I have to set this up. Yeah, Damari will be championship, and I'm a little bit surprising he came back to the championship since he left Everton to go there. Bless up Nitro. A little bit strange that he would come back to the championship, but you got to do what you got to do, is the way I see it. You have to do what you have to do. But I am surprised that he went back to the championship. I would have thought that he would have tried to figure out how to get back to the Premier League and play at the highest level, because the championships are much more physical level too. So you would have thought he would say, you know what? I am not going to go championship. I am going to try to play in the Premier League, but we'll see what's happening. Yeah, I'm on the road. I'm traveling. You know, this time I didn't fly though. I'm on a trip someplace. I was on the train for what? How many hours was I on the train? 10, 18, 20 hours? Yeah. I flew twice last month. I decided not to fly. Maybe not the best decision. I think going forward, I'm just gonna fly and just get over it. I can't be on the train that long anymore. They gave him a good deal. It couldn't be as good as the Saudi deal. Trust me, can't be as good as the Saudi deal. And no matter what deal they gave him, it can't be as good as the Saudi deal. I don't think so anyway. I just don't see how it could be. The Saudi deal is because you got to think the Saudi deal, you don't pay taxes, you know, if you stay out of the country for a certain period of time. So I don't think it could be as good as the Saudi deal. But that's just me and my thoughts on that. I have a question, people. Ricketts is probably in, there's a term limit for the JFF president, right? So at this point in time, who do you think is in a position to become the president of JFF? I wouldn't say always traveling, but when you're seasoned, you know, you need to enjoy life, so you need to move around, right? Who you guys would think should be president of the JFF? Because Ricketson is what? He's been there now, I think he has what, 3 more years left in term, or 2.5 years, whatever the period is. Probably 2.5 years left in his term. Bless up Dr. Dunn. Who do you think should be who do you think is in best position to be the president for the JFF? Would love to hear your thoughts. Kranky, no, Kranky ain't gonna be the president for that. Kranky's the president of Kranky Incorporation, which is a stay-at-home role. Do YouTube. That's what I'm president of. You guys need to you guys need to help me to expand my remit here and expand my channel. So you gotta share my channel, you gotta subscribe, and you have to when you come in the chat, because much of you don't want to do it. See, even when I put out the poll and ask you to subscribe, we now have 99 people and 57 likes. I don't understand that. So to me that's a disrespect. I'm gonna be honest. To me that's a disrespect. If I ask you to, that's a big disrespect to me. If I ask you to, when you come in the chat, to hit the like button, and you have watched I can understand if you come in and you've never watched my show before, so you don't know if you're gonna like it or not, so you want to wait and see. But if you've been a regular person who visit, some of you visit don't subscribe. Some of you will never subscribe, by the way, but you still want to visit. And you don't want to hit the like button. That's a disrespect. Disrespect. Trust me. But it's your prerogative. If you don't want to hit the like button, it's up to you. We're not gonna beg no likes. We will just take it as it is. We'll ask for the likes, but we ain't gonna beg. I have a question for you guys. So give me a name, people. Who you think is in position to become president for the JFF when President Ricketts vacate his role, because he does have a term limit? Any perspective, any ideas, any views? Let me know. Conrad says, Mr. Speid is acting president now. He's getting ready to be president soon. It's an interesting one. Rudolph. Bless up, Chris Smith. Oh, they said, because if JFF is an authoritarian union system, I see Speid getting it on next line. Okay. So most people think, bless up, J. Russ, most people think Rudolph is in position to become JFF president. Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing? I'm seriously would love to hear your view. Do you view it as a good thing or bad thing? And by the way, to be president of JFF, you just have to be able to convince the parishes that you're going to serve their interests and you will become president. Someone says Errol Stevens. I think he's too young in the process. I think I was told by someone to know that there's a term limit for the president. I could be wrong, but I was told by someone. So unless that person gave me wrong information, and the person, I won't say who the person is, but trust me, they're not a low-level person. So if someone said there's no term limit, then something is amiss, because that person told me that there was. And maybe there is, Paula, we don't know about it, because there are things that happen, Paula, we don't know. The whole quota system is not written any place in our Paul. It's not in the Constitution. It's not in any formalized document that you could go look at. But there is a quota system which we've been told for the junior teams. I probably should go back to the Constitution and check. I mean, someone told me that when I was in Jamaica, actually. So I need to go back to the Constitution and check. But they did say it was a term limit for the president. And I even got names as to people who are, I won't mention any names, but who are well positioned to be considered for that role. Although it's a good thing, because if you keep changing personals and new people, it can be damaging with new decision. I like to pass me down. Interesting. So you say it's not a democracy, it's a pass down system. Even though we do have a limited voter base, and if you can get the majority of that base, you're in a good place. So Tuffy says, I think Rudolph would be a great replacement as long as he stays away from the media, because he's confident, which comes across as arrogance. So I have some descriptive word for Rudolph. So I'm probably going to make a case. Am I going to make a case for Rudolph? I'm making a case for what the president should bring to the table, and you can figure out if Rudolph should be that person, and also talk about what I think are Rudolph's best attributes and some of his challenges. So I view the role of someone who's first and foremost a leader, someone who's strategic, someone who has vision, someone who can oversee processes and ensure the implementation of the process and execution goes well, someone who has a resume to show that along their journey and their path that they have accomplishments. If you guys were around a couple of years ago when I was giving my input about the organization which should assume the role of running the JFF, and the comparative was between Raymond's team and Ricketts' team. As you know, I didn't support Raymond's team because I couldn't in my life understand how Raymond has been JFF so long, but couldn't definitively point to some of his accomplishments. Now, I know a lot of accomplishments come from a we thing, not a me thing, right? Because you work in a group, but you have to be able to demonstrate and show what things that you have done and the progress, the trajectory you've taken along your career, and how you can add value and how you can be a difference maker. And I didn't see that with him. So it wasn't an affront to Raymond, even though it may come across that way. And I wasn't trying to be nasty or mean to Raymond, but we're discussing this in a public forum. And I couldn't see, frankly, to be honest, how I could be totally comfortable with someone in that role when they couldn't clearly articulate what they have done in 20 years in the organization. You have to be able to show whatever job you're doing, if you're a plumber, if you're a teacher, if you're an accountant, if you're the president, you got to be able to show, like you'll see in politics, in the Jamaica election coming up, you got to talk to your accomplishment and tick them off. And in fact, you should be ticking off things that you should be doing as you go through your career in your life. Whatever stage of life you're in, you should be doing that, right? You should be ticking off and checking, what gets me to the next level? What do I need to do? And something you're going to do just based on you being very focused on being ambitious and trying to achieve things in alignment with your ambition. So let's go to so I just talked about some of the skill set. Let's talk about Rudolph. I think, look, and this is not, I'm not here being an advocate for Rudolph, because I did watch the interview, and as you guys know, I'm gonna provide my hopefully unbiased perspective on that interview and what he said in the interview, because I think it's interesting, some of the things that he talked about, and most of those things are not necessarily new. We have seen Rudolph in public forums, whether on YouTube channels, otherwise, having some of those discussions. I didn't think, as I normally don't, I thought that the interview was fine. I didn't think some of the questions were as penetrative as they probably should have been, especially touch upon the current situation with the current coach, right? But look, Speid is a very confident person. He has really done well in bringing Cavaliers to where they were to where they are. So he has a good resume, right? Both personal, in his professional life, and what I would call, and in football life is also professional for him. So he's multifaceted. He does a lot of different things simultaneously, and he's accomplished a lot in the Jamaica circle throughout his career. And then you got to think about how does that transition to a more CONCACAF or global environment. Yeah, Amron says, as the people who are there, speaks with the best. Well, he's the one we're aware of, right? Sometimes you have people, Amron, in the background who are doing a lot, but don't get the visibility and don't get the notoriety that others assume. But Speid has done quite a bit. See him. He's what he was talking about, which we'll go through quite a bit. Is an interview he did with SportsMax about over 20 minutes, and what he's talked about sort of leading or being involved in a significant role in the whole coaching initiative, understanding that this is an imperative and a need versus a want, which is a good thing actually, as it comes to Jamaica football, and we'll touch upon that. I mean, he's very confident. Some people could say he's arrogant. He's very confident. Is he an egotist? Yeah, he is. He's knowledgeable. He's fairly well spoken. He's extremely ambitious. Extremely ambitious. He's dictatorial, which people may think that's all bad, but sometimes it's a need, especially when you have strong personalities around you. The question I'll ask for him: does he surround himself with people who can challenge him effectively? Because you have to be a smart person and to be a true leader and a good leader. You shouldn't be the smartest person in the room, and I always keep saying that. You should not be, because if you are and you're dominant, then it doesn't make for a good situation, especially as you move up the ladder. You may do it at a certain level and can be very effective, but as you move up the ladder, that may change, right? And I think the reason why I think it's important for us to have a strong leader in the role, because I do like the current president, quite a bit, like a lot actually. But I don't think he leads in the role as he should, right? He's charismatic, he's articulate, but I've seen leaders like him where they're afraid. I don't say he's afraid. They just are just nice people, right? They're empathetic, they're considerate, but you need both sides to you to be really effective sometimes in difficult environments. You can't always be a nice guy. Sometimes you have to be, a difficult person. And I'm not sure he has that in his repertoire. And I've never seen him really exude that. So I do think that Rudolph, as president, it'll be interesting how it works, actually. I think Rudolph may come across more like the captain in some respects in terms of his authoritarianism and how he operates. Where I think that may be a detriment, but also a plus, is in CONCACAF. And to extend that, maybe even in FIFA. So I don't think the president, I don't see in any way, shape, or form, and people, I get to the interview and I have some other stuff I want to talk about, but I don't see any shape or form how the most, one of the more populous countries in the Caribbean, English-speaking Caribbean anyway, if you want to extend it out to Haiti and Dominican Republic, then obviously not there, but one of the most prominent countries, and the region itself, which has over 3/4 of the vote in CONCACAF, has little or no power in CONCACAF. That is ridiculous. I disagree with you. This president allows people to function their roles and not to try to overshadow them. We agree to disagree, Paul. And I've had conversations with people, Paul. So sometimes people like talk and people think I'm just talking off the top of my head because I just like to talk. Well, maybe that's true in some respects. But if I'm giving you some intelligence information, Paul, it's because sometimes I have my own perspective and my own analysis that informs my view, but I couple that or I embellish that or I add to that by garnering data, information, empirical evidence from other sources to substantiate my view. That is not me just like to talk. If I bring something out in that respect, it's because I've seen it, others have brought to my attention, or in passing conversation that has come up in discussion. So President is a very smart man. Not saying he's not smart. Not saying he's not an empathetic person, a good person. In fact, I don't know anybody who have met the president don't like him. I know people who have met Speid don't like him just by meeting him. Don't know him from Adam. I don't think I know anybody who has met the president don't like him. He's just that like of a person. If you go meet the president now, say your name is John Brown, and someone mentioned John Brown to him, and he hears John Brown, and he see you, John Brown, you think you're the most important person in the room. And I love people with those attributes because they're considerate and they're empathetic and they have just a good heart. And I love people like that. So I will never be a person who is anti the president per se. I may call him out for not doing certain things, but I had a leader in my previous job who was just like him, who led an organization that managed trillions of dollars. And I can remember him engaging me. I'd adopted some family members, and he was told about it. And he was the president of the company and a well-known person in the financial service arena. I won't mention his name, but really well-known. And he had me by the elevator for an hour trying to find out what can he do, how is that going. He was just so considerate, and he was genuine because I've seen him with the mailman, and I've seen him with the janitor talking to them, right? And he's a man who's richer than God, I call it. And he also has a profile. So the president reminds me of him. At the same time, I criticize that person because he avoids confrontation like the plague. So somebody like him is that prominent, you're like, why don't you? And we all can't be the same. You avoid confrontation like the plague. And sometimes that, to me, that's not good to leadership because you have to deal with difficult situations. You have to. I think Speid would probably go on these things head on versus hiding from them. Amen says, most leaders are egotistical. That's what Jamaica needs. I don't know if that's a need or a want. You need authoritarian in the Jamaica culture. It's tough to work. And one of the persons, I think Rudolph believes that. I don't think so. I think Rudolph believes that you have to be that way sometimes, given the environment it operates in, and it's effective. So if it's effective, you keep doing it. Joey Brown says, being confident and articulate doesn't mean you are fit for the role. Speech should be kept away from the president or a coach. There is more negative than positive. Speech is slowly conning you all. I don't think it's a con, Joseph Brown. Joseph Brown, here's the thing that you should always consider. Tell me your alternative. So before we say someone shouldn't assume a role or shouldn't do something, you have to come up with solutions so the audience and anyone else can understand that there are alternatives. Maybe they are, as I said before, maybe there are alternatives. We don't know if there's alternatives. At least I don't know. Odo said, Kranky, does the JFF president have the final say or just a face? You show a 7-member board JFF list the other day, and it seemed like it's China where they all decide everything instead of person. No, the president has final sign-off. The president and the board have final sign-off. Some things will go to the board, but I kind of get the sense that a lot of things go to the board is just rubber stamp. It's based on decision made downstream. But I'm going to give you an example. I think the president was the one who, I know when he had the girl situation with Vin Blaine and all that, I think the president is the one who ultimately makes those decisions. Yeah. All right, J. Ross, I hear you. My brother's one of those people. JC, I don't think is smart. Well, maybe he is the smartest room, but if you're in a room, you're in the wrong room because you should be learning from others. How does one get on the board of JFF? That's probably where the problem starts, is our fear. Yeah, that board of JFF is, apart from someone mentioned, what's his name? Stephen, that's now part of the board. He's from the St. Anne region. Most of them have been there forever. That board doesn't turn over a lot of people. You hear me call the coach dinosaur? I think the board is also dinosaur. Are you making a case for Speid? Watch that dinner? No, I'm not making a case for Speid at all. Speid and I had a wonderful dinner, 4 hours of agreeing half of the time and disagreeing. Well, agreeing 40% of the time, disagreeing 60% of the time. I don't think you guys understand this. Like, I try not to have enemies, but if I'm passionate about something and if I think I'm gonna call you out. As I said on this program, I've said it all the time, I don't call out my friends, or I try not to call out other YouTubers, even though I've done it once or 2 times. Rudolph and I are not friends, we're associates. And he's running an organization which I'm passionate about, and a country I'm passionate about, and football I'm passionate about. So if I say things that are not right, I'm gonna call it out. And anybody to say, well, you're kissing up to Speid, that's your prerogative. I can't tell you that. But I would love to see if somebody kissing up to somebody and beat them so much. That's That's sick, actually, if that's the case. If you care about somebody, if you are into somebody that much and you are beating them as much as I beat Speid, I'm not really beating Speid, I'm beating the process, but he's part of it, then something is wrong. Josie Brown said, okay, Kranky, my fix is open the road to more than the parishes because the no is only with them and Speid. Until Speid is beyond such roads, I can feel like him. Yeah, look, Joseph, it's a good point you're making. I think the process is too confined. I think FIFA has done a poor job of ensuring that the electorate is broader and that there's more say in the football, because that electorate is easily manipulated. Easily manipulated. All you have to do is convince the JPL and the parish presidents and you win the election. And if you're in power, most governments in power, that's much easier to do because you have more resources to put that in play, right? So that's clear. And you're gonna hurt himself. Solutions, writing sponsors, stop supporting JFMs. That's not a solution. That's suicide. That's not a solution. Trust me, that's not a solution. We have had that before. Both sponsors weren't supporting the JFF when they were in really bad financial shape. That didn't change anything. No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all, determined. I think that's the wrong way to go. But anyway, I'm not advocating for Speid to be president. I was just curious because I was thinking about him and seeing him being interviewed by SportsMax. Now, I want to mention one thing before I jump into I have three more things to talk about. One is I got to touch upon LSM because LSM just annoys the hell out of me. I'm going to play the SportsMax interview, and then I have to touch about my favorite topic, the coach and what he does. And something Speid said is in the interview, which we have talked about ad nauseum in other forums. But I have a question for you guys. I haven't heard or seen Toxic Boss in a while, actually, because I've linked to different forums in Jamaica. I haven't seen, is Toxic Boss, is he now in Speid? Does Speid have him in lockup or something? Because man gets silent. Man's silent. One last two times silent. Maybe my talk, I'm just not here. Maybe not listen well. So I was listening to, I have to pull this up. Let me see if we can't find it. I was listening to something the other day. I have to pull it up. Where is it? I have to pull it up, people. Those people who says YouTubers are toxic, they're not on brain, they're stupid, they're not on sense. Yet they keep using our materials. I find that really, really interesting. They keep using our materials. I wonder why. Huh? Then if I think you're not smart, I'm not going to use your material. Why would I do that? That's not a good thing. But I keep seeing where they're using our materials. So I'm going to play this. Let me see if I can find it. So somebody sent me this. So if I can find it, I'll play it. So, and by the way, this is from TVJ. You see, I have my fair use disclaimer because somebody complained to me that we use their material and don't give them credit, even though I really don't want to use their material. But for me to outlay, you got to hear from the person. So here is LSM on his TV show talking about the coach and the situation. So, and then I want to bring up exactly why I bring this up.
So word emerging is that Reggae Boyz coach Steve McLaren will not be fired and will remain in charge for the final round of World Cup qualifiers. Apparently, the JFF decided to stick with Coach McLaren despite the poor performances and the bad Gold Cup results. And look, firing another coach in the middle of the qualifying campaign to start again from scratch was never a good idea. Right now, the team needs continuity and not instability. The good thing is, though, although McLaren is struggling to get the Reggae Boyz clicking, what saved his job was that final round World Cup qualifying draw involving Trinidad, Curacao, and Bermuda. Anyhow, with a drop in a tougher group with some better teams, McLaren would have to go. But right now, he remains for stability, as Jamaica should qualify for the World Cup in spite of McLaren and not because of McLaren. Oh.
Dre said, hey, so Kranky, what if we keep the coach? You're still backing us to make the World Cup? Yes. I said this before, Dre. We make the World Cup despite the coach, not because of the coach. So am I just taking this too far, or do you think people are watching our programs and borrowing our material? Huh? I just find it very coincidental that I know I've said this number. I think I said this. This last time I put this up was June 27th. So I think the Maverick thing was 2 days ago. I find it very interesting that we YouTubers who don't know sense, we toxic this, but all the time I see them I do things, them I use the material. Now I'm sure somebody push it back and say, no, that's not true. Here's my own. It's very coincidental. Don't you think it's aligned too well, people? Eh? It aligned too well, people. It aligned too well. Them think they align too well. Why him say in him last for them program? For him jump off? Because they know what you know, they watch YouTubers and do this and not do that and can't deal with YouTubers them and them too enough and everything. Yeah, Jonathan, I've been repeating this statement quite a bit actually, Jonathan. And all of a sudden they come up on the TV. Right. What I say? I guess some things we say do go abroad. So maybe somebody else mentioned to him can watch my program as him say. But I find it so coincidental and so interesting. Seriously, I do. Yes, it's a real coincidence, Drew. No, he's a very influential person, must win. Trust me, must win. He's a very influential person in Jamaica. I know this for a fact. That's indisputable. I missed the material that was pirated. I just played it, so you weren't listening well, Douglas. But anyway, we're going to move on. I just thought it was interesting to hear him play that. Because when I heard the previous SportsMax interview, when they interviewed the coach, you know much YouTubers type question that I heard them ask. Now, some of those questions you have to ask, get the nature of it. But I'm going to give you I'm going to play this interview. I'm going to try to stop it throughout the process as I go through. And then, so it's a reaction video I'm doing. I hope I have the entire interview here because I think it's interesting. But I think you need to comment on it because it's a very expansive interview talking about, the JFF. Well, it's not the JFF. There's a coaching development program in Jamaica. It wasn't initiated by the JFF, but they're now involved in it. But you know what? I should let the interview speak for itself without me trying to articulate.
The relaunch of its coach education program, which has been refined with a modernized and structured licensing system in accordance to the international standards of discipline. At the official media briefing held last week at the Jaguar Land Rover showroom in Kingston, the JFF president, Michael.
And by the way, not to get myself in trouble, it's the same thing about the fair use here. This is material come from SportsMax. The pictures I took from this, and also the verbiage is from SportsMax. So I'll make sure I give them credit for the program. I could have repeat what was said, but I think it better come from the persons who are speaking.
Ricketts confirmed that Jamaica has been officially approved as a C-level member of the CONCACAF Coaching Convention, making it the latest Caribbean nation to operate under a unified regional framework for coach certification and development, an achievement he believes is in the best interest of the country's coaching. All right, so this is what Michael Ricketts said. This is a tremendous achievement for the Federation, for our coaches, and for our country. It signifies that our coaching education and licensing systems now meet rigorous regional standards set by CONCACAF, enabling mutual recognition of qualifications across member associations. This means our coaches will benefit from enhanced credibility, increased mobility, and wider professional opportunities throughout the region. Well, the newly implemented system will now require all coaches in Jamaica to be licensed through the JFF and to renew their credentials every 3 years. Talks of a diploma program, expansion of female coach representation, and upcoming partnerships with CONCACAF and UEFA have also been mentioned in the JFF's plans. Well, to elaborate more on these recent developments in Jamaican coaching, we welcome the chairman of the JFF Technical and Development Committee, Rudolph Speid. It turns out, you're here with us in studio, and I'm happy. I much appreciate when you join us in studio, Rudolph.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yes, so you're here with me today. Let's start by talking about this JFF coaching education program. The mastermind that went into this, and one of the things that stood out to me from that launch that you all have is that you want to make Jamaica the education hub. And, I have to ask you, why Jamaica and why this direction?
Well, just a little correction. It's actually Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago is supposed to be the hub for the Caribbean. So it's both of us really.
Okay.
That's supposed to take place. So we'll probably concentrate on the Greater Antilles, this side of the Caribbean, and Trinidad would concentrate on the Lesser Antilles and those countries nearer to
good.
Trinidad. So that's really the plan. Mainly because we probably have two of the largest population, and Trinidad has, have tremendous strides also in coaching education.
Yes.
And that's why we're embarking on this product. We understand that some Caribbean islands will not be able to offer the same type of professionalism because, we are very advanced in our Premier League and our national teams. So we thought that we should take the responsibility and help the lesser countries.
And when you say help will come in what ways?
Oh, so their coaches, imagine a small island with probably 20,000 or 100,000 persons. It would be difficult to have a coaching course, say at the A license, even the pro license level, that they'll find enough coaches to make it financially viable, but they could send over two from each country.
As we go to the video, I'm going to stop it and comment. Now, Rudolph says they're trying to help the other islands. Do you guys truly believe that? Here is why I'm questioning that altruism that he's inferring or suggesting. This whole thing started in Trinidad, not in Jamaica, right? In fact, Rudolph worked with Trinidad on a lot of this. If you listen to the last time the Trinidad president was talking on a radio program, I think I played some part of it, he indicated that when they were asking about generating revenues, some mentioned endowment, which I'm not sure he fully understood what that means, but he indicated the coaching program they have as a revenue generator for the organization, right? Now, I'm not sure it's the one like we have in Jamaica where it seemed like it's done outside of JFF, because you go to this interview, you hear Speid talk about how it all started and all that. But I found it really interesting that he mentioned this almost in the sense of we're doing a favor to the other islands when supposedly it's a revenue generator for Trinidad. So wouldn't it be for us also? Or I'm not even sure who us means. Is that the JFF? Is that those coaches who start the program? Who actually gets paid for this?
And get the same education to help their programs.
Yeah, what stood out to me too is the attention that will be paid to female coaches and the plans that you have. And I think you all have a timeline of 2028.
2030 is a timeline that was agreed by CONCACAF that all national team coaches at the senior level and clubs participating at the senior level must have a pro license. So we are working towards that, and that is, one of the reasons why we have small targets, like 28 would be a target to ensure that by that time we're actually.
Until now, game changer.
I apologize, people. I'm playing it from YouTube, so I have to just wait and skip the advertisement as it comes up. I apologize.
By ourselves.
And Rudolph, how often these courses will happen, and then even for our viewers, because our show is throughout the Caribbean, right? People are probably hearing this for the first time. Like, how do you become a part of it?
Well, it's easy. As a matter of fact, this year alone, we did about 400 D license coach in every single parish. There's provision for each parish association to make the first contact with the coaches, and then we just come on and teach. I mean, one of the things that is left behind is that we actually have coaching educators here.
Okay.
Ourselves, we can teach up to the B license level. So even although CONCACAF recognizes us at the C, we are now teaching B. CONCACAF is supposed to come in and actually audit our B to give us certification at that level. And meanwhile, we're doing that, as you know, we're doing an A license course this summer as we speak, a Jamaican A license. So we're well on our way to become, almost full-fledged, the full suite of courses.
When I think about football, I remember growing up and, coaches would just pick up the coaching because let's just say they knew a thing or two about football, or they were the senior person in the community and they pick up the coaching, and then they're a coach because they're training people and they're getting results. Don't get me wrong. Why is it so important now, Rudolph, that coaches get these certificates in order to move forward? And do you find coaches hesitant to become qualified here in Jamaica?
Yes to both of your questions. I think why they had success in the past was somebody had to win.
People in the hear that comment, the people in the hear that? The man said, before because Rudolph make it seem like the coaching education is the elixir, and without it, you can't be a good coach, right? Because there's self-learning, and then there is learning in a more formal environment, a more traditional learning environment. People get self-taught at home, so it's possible to be a good coach without the structured program. It's probably better to go to the program because you incorporate a lot of things that you may not consider. But he's basically saying that the coaches weren't good because somebody had to win. That's why the coaches weren't where they are, which goes back to the point about if we're now not at a place where it's a mature process, then how can we argue about the quality of JPL players? You got to be kidding me. Whoever's calling me, people, that's not okay. I'm serious about it. That's not okay. I'm playing a video and you're hearing it and you're calling me. Let me finish the video first. I'm commenting on the video for a reason, right? As we go through it, but don't, please, this is not to be rude. So then you let me lose my track and mess up everything here. You can't call in the middle of when I'm playing it. It's not okay. So in Rudolph's situation here, it's almost as if, and here's another thing too. Rudolph said we have a licensed coach, right? And he's I think he's A or maybe even goes to pro. Where did he get his license from? It wasn't Jamaica, right? It wasn't Jamaica. It had to be through Trinidad, because Trinidad's the only one in the Caribbean was probably at that level. So I'm not sure he's giving Trinidad the credit they deserve about how Jamaica got to where they got to and what some of the things that they leverage, given the partnership they have with Trinidad to get them there. But it's very funny to say somebody had to win. So it doesn't mean that you're a good coach. You just had to win. One team has to lose and one has to win.
Wow. Okay.
A good one. Somebody has jokes today.
Yeah, somebody has to win. So yes, we still have that persons not doing the courses when they should. But if you notice, there's a new trend in Jamaica, which tells you that you probably should do the courses. All the Premier League top coaches came through our coaching school now. If you notice, they're all through our school. All the A-licensed coaches are getting significant success in the leagues. Not just Premier League. If you look in the schoolboy football, same thing. In the Caribbean, last year we won 4 titles with A-licensed coach Letman. With the under-20 girls, Xavier would have won it with Arnett Garden, the Shield. I would have won the club championship, and Peart would have won the under-15 boys tournament. So you can see that already there are, tangible benefits. It's the first time we probably would have played Inter Miami and there would be no fear. So
let me just say something, because I'm very frustrated when I hear Speid say these things, right? I am not saying the coaching program doesn't help or will not help. In fact, I think it's a very good initiative. But when you come espouse the view in the public domain about how successful the program is, and you have done nothing outside of the Caribbean, when you were a larger population country, and you've always won in the Caribbean. It's not like you haven't won. And also in the Caribbean, even though some countries are improving, like Dominican Republic, it does beg the question as to how do I truly judge the success when historically I've achieved in the Caribbean. So it's not like this is the first time we're going to be winning stuff in the Caribbean. If you want to impress me, I've said this numerous times, do something in CONCACAF outside the Caribbean. Seriously. And maybe the program will get us there.
You can see the benefits in it. It's not there yet, but clearly you can see the benefits of going through our courses. The coaches who have not gone through the courses, if you notice, they are not really coaching a lot of, coaching again are at a high level.
I just have one more before Donald takes over. If the coaching system in Jamaica is so good, why do we go outside for our Reggae Boyz coach?
Good.
She's not listening. I'm sorry. Either she's not listening or I'm not listening really well. So she's saying, if they're so good, why do we go outside for maybe national coaches? And listen to what Speid has to say, because I'm going to beat him after this.
Question. That's the best question. So we from a technical point, looking at some issues. One,
choose Advil liquid gels for faster, stronger, and longer lasting relief.
we have we have our coach Pearson doing the under 14 period, the under 15. We had a US coach doing under 17, Swedish coach doing under 20.
What do you mean a US coach doing the under 17? Wasn't the US coach for under 17 Freddie Butler? Isn't Freddie Butler Jamaican? Played for the national team, born in Jamaica? Are we saying he's a foreign coach, or is he a local? I don't know how you put labels on those. I don't understand that.
And then we have an English coach doing the senior team. We believe is a problem because that identity is not locked in anywhere in that hierarchy of coaches. So this is one of the reasons why we're forcing ourselves, and also using regulations to guide the development to ensure that one day soon, all the coaches will come from one place. In that way, you can sit down and have a style of play that everybody will agree on, and we can move forward as a country.
How many participants taking part in the A license course right now?
It should be 20. It hasn't started. It's going to start in August. It should be 20, but it looks like we might have to go to 24. There's a lot of demand now.
Oh, there's a lot of interest.
Yes, people from even USA, it's not just Jamaicans trying to do the course.
Any Trinis?
No, because Trinidad keep their own A license course. They're up to standard.
Talk to me about the vision that you have for coaching in Jamaica. Of course, you have been successful at the Jamaica Premier League level. And even when you were seeking
Caribbean Cup level.
Yes, let's add that as well, of course, at the regional level as well. But even when you were looking for the national coach for Jamaica at the senior level, you use the term that you are seeking a modern coach. And I think since then, that has been the quote that's used to kind of describe your outlook. So I just want you to expand on that. What do you consider to be that modern coach?
Well, one of the things that we learn in the coaching sessions is that you're coaching modern kids. They are very savvy electronically. If you tell them anything and it's not true, they have their best friend Google or AI right there to make sure to know that it's not true. And if you start to tell them about trends, they can research it themselves. They are good at it. So a coach in this era needs to be able to do all of that and more. And one of the reasons why we keep the CPD and the coach license is that we needed to keep up to date with the modern trends, what is happening, because you could really get swept away behind, if you're not up to date. So a modern coach is somebody that not just understand coaching, but also understand who they are coaching and how do you get them to perform at their best. So do
you guys agree with that definition of a modern coach? Actually, I'm curious. If I'm thinking about modern coach, I'm thinking about a couple of key factors, which is what is my tactical strategic acumen as a coach. Before the game, I was talking about the player and the mental aspect to the game, that whole development holistically of the player. And also, how do you, in a real game environment, can sort of optimize or ensure you get the best out of your team? And also, how do you keep abreast of what's happening around you? You hear people talk about pep, inverted, talk about transition, counter attack, all these things that are happening because football has changed materially. We're now playing with inverted wingers. We started off with Pep trying to make sure 11 players are playing football, not 10 and a goalkeeper. If you look at Arsenal with Raya, he's not a sweeper keeper. He's not a regular keeper. He's playing to the left of the field, not in his goal. That's why he got caught out a few times. So you're involving all 11 players in the game and repositioning your team in such a way to give you advantage. And also tactically, which I don't rate some coaches on, how do I adapt when things may not go based on my scouting, based on my research, right? So it's a modern coach. It's probably no frankly different from any of the coaches historically who are doing their jobs the right way, right? Because if you're in a certain era, are you at the top of your game in your era? Are you keeping abreast in your era of how things are working, how things are changing? And also, do you have any innovation that you bring to the table? Right? Or do you just follow the status quo and just copy like some people do when they look at Pep, for example? They copy what Pep does, first thinking about, you know what? Maybe there's something else I can learn from this and enhance it significantly and not just apply what he's doing. So it's interesting. He started off with saying about the kids and their reaction. I think it's probably less about, obviously, kids may have a perspective on how you teach them, given what they're learning, but I'm sure they're going to go check. It's about what you do and does it resonate with them?
Yeah, it's kind of getting a little bit difficult to coach nowadays.
I know in the past there has been some integration between local coaches and whoever comes from overseas to be a part of that national senior setup. How has that integration worked in your opinion?
No, and we have moved away from it because, you know, to tell the truth, we thought that a lot of coaches from 1994 who came here didn't leave anything behind. We were not any wiser or any better, the local coaches. So we had to depend on, you know, getting coaches from overseas, and they are expensive. And they want to live overseas. They don't want to live here, so it's difficult to really get that development that you need. And that is one of the reasons after seeing, let me tell you the real reason why we kind of...
So let me stop it there because he goes a little bit of on a sidebar on this after this point. He's making a great point, actually, which is how do I develop coaches in-house? Because to me, the most important coaching that you probably need is when you're much more junior in the process. It's not when you reach the JPL, frankly, because then you have all the bad habits that you've developed and you haven't developed the right way. It's primary school, it's high school. And I'm hoping that they cascade the coaching down, because a lot of times you go top heavy first and you cascade downwards versus realizing that I have to develop the kids who are coming through to make sure they have the fundamentals right, make sure they have the mental acumen and the physical construct, and teaching them to think football, not just play football, that will allow them to make the progress they need to make. So when they get to JPL, they're fundamentally sound, regardless of the condition, for example, of the facilities they play in. And so it's very important also, you know, Speid brought a big point about money, because people don't think about money when it comes to this. He mentioned how expensive overseas coaches are and they don't want to live in Jamaica. First of all, I'll beat him to say, this coach was supposed to live in Jamaica. You said so at the press conference, and he doesn't live in Jamaica, right? Because he's saying, Hall Gibson want to live in Jamaica, Paul Hall wants to live in Florida, and this coach lives in England. So it is important for the country to have a lot of qualified coaches. And I've said this numerous times in the past, the country with the most pro-licensed coaches, the most A-licensed coaches is Spain, which they then take that to develop a footballing philosophy and a style of play. And to me, they've been the most successful football program on the planet, our country, in the last, I would say, probably 14, 15 years. If you look at their accomplishments and what they've produced instead of coaches that they've exported, and our players who play in various leagues, including La Liga.
I start the coaching education program.
Yeah.
There was a World Cup, no, not a World Cup, Olympic qualifier when we had, I think it's St. Kitts, Jamaica, and I can't remember the other team. We kept it at Arnett Gardens.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we had the best players you could think of
Yes.
playing for Jamaica. But when we look on the St. Kitts bench, they qualified. They actually had a coaching educator that was teaching us B license. So he had a less talented team, but superior coaching knowledge. And we lost out. And that was the catalyst that said, listen, we have to do something about our coaches, because we'll never, ever, ever be able to beat teams who are even lesser than us in talent. And so from that's where the idea was born. A couple of coaches, about 5 of us, sat around the table and said, we have to do something. So we did. So it was Pierre, Xavier Gilbert, Foster Reynolds, myself, I think Virtue. And we also got help from Andre War, who works at CONCACAF. He helps us tremendously in our program. But we sat down nights after nights and said, we have to do something about it. We formed the Coaching Association. Then we went to the JFF and said, listen, we could do this at no cost to you, and we would give you 20% of the profits that we make. So, I mean, we gave them a proposal that they couldn't refuse, and that is how the idea of the coaching school was revamped.
How close are we to getting that Jamaican identity in football? Because I feel sometimes when we look at the national program that I don't spot that identity, and you're promising a future.
Yeah.
Mind you, a lot of us are hoping that it's an immediate future because we're looking ahead to a World Cup next year. Having said that, as far as the long-term future is concerned, what are you looking at?
No, it won't be for the World Cup, and we accept that. It will be probably for 2030, 2034. We looked at the model, trying to remember. There was a model that we looked at where the country was ranked 66 when they started their coach education program. I think it's Belgium. And 20 years after, they have been in the top 10 countries in the world every single time. So we looked at that model, and that was what we kind of fashioned ourselves.
And then him go to hire one English coach that I call a dinosaur. So the conflict, I don't know why I use the word conflict, but it just don't make no sense to me, people. You say you look at Belgium as the barometer to determine who you should emulate as you go forward this coaching program. And I'm supportive of the coaching program, by the way. Right? I also think they need to probably supplement the coaching program with doing some traveling and getting input from countries like Spain, but that's just me. Because they're using CONCACAF a lot to assess the program, give them the qualification. But you then went out and hired an English coach, and I only want to know one very successful English coach nowadays, and that's Eddie Howe, who's also a very young coach who's at Newcastle. Most of the other ones, Potter, Moyes, they're sort of recycled coach, right? And so why would you go get an English coach when you just use Belgium as your barometer or your criteria or whatever you want to call it to emulate their coaching program? And you brought in a coach, you talk about a modern coach, you want a modern coach. Do we think this coach is a modern coach? I just don't understand how you make the decision you make about the hiring when it's going to fly in the face of all you're saying in a public domain about what the optimum coach should look like and be like. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And maybe I'm not that smart because I've been told I'm a dunce when it comes to football. So maybe I'm not that smart, but at the end of the day, it's just not logical. It just isn't.
So the success will not come overnight. I'm thinking maybe 2030, 2034. Our aim is to qualify for every single World Cup after that.
So is that the thinking, or was that the reasoning behind sticking with Steve McLaren?
No, we're not. I don't think we're ready yet at this particular point in time to decide that all the Jamaican coaches will coach all teams. No, we're not ready. But in the future, we hope to be.
Because there has been a lot of questioning as to the transition and how the Reggae Boyz are performing.
And by the way, people, who's the longest 10-year coach in Jamaica history? Isn't that Tapa? Think about his 2 stints with the JFF. I think Tapa is probably the longest reigning coach in Jamaica history, isn't he? So it's not like we haven't had local coaches. Carl Brown coach, Tapa coach. We have our local coaches.
At this level. And you probably would have seen the comments online. Even you have come under some criticism in terms of the way forward and the type of coaches that we have been selecting. So how weary are you of the process to immediately qualify for this upcoming World Cup? Because it's said that this is a very easy passage. We have Caribbean opposition. So how weary are you of sticking with what's taking place right now?
Yeah, there's no easy games. I mean, ask Honduras that and Cayman had to score on themselves for Honduras to win the 88th minute.
But you do know that Jamaicans expect the Reggae Boyz to go through to the World Cup.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
They do.
Even when I saw the fixtures, I felt like it looked okay.
And I thought it's the easiest chance we have. But there's no easy game. It's 2 different things.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
And I'm happy that a Caribbean team will be in the World Cup too. But, you know, there's a set amount. That's what I'm saying about the modern coach. Look, there's a set amount. A good coach can set up his team to make it difficult for you. And nowadays, coaches are not beating the whole team. They could beat a few players and still win the game. So these are the levels where the game has gone. So you can't be saying that, yeah, Jamaica is a better team and the best team in the group, but that don't mean they're going to win. We have to work hard for it and don't have a complacent mindset.
Based on the discussions that you would have had, though, what have been the issues relating to the type of performances we have seen from the Reggae Boys in recent times?
Sometimes we play well, sometimes we play very badly. The inconsistency is what is the issue. I mean, you'd have to go back way back to find a game where we make 500 passes. We tend to do that more often now. So there's some progress, but the inconsistency is killing us. We're good today, we're bad tomorrow. Also, the team seems to keep changing a lot. You know? So those are some of the issues.
So this is where reporters earn their money, right? It's where you earn your money. He's explaining to you why the team is not playing well. Don't you follow-up question, why aren't they playing well consistency? If you think it's the coach, don't you ask a question about that, which is, do you think the coach is providing? He may not be able to answer it, and he probably shouldn't, but you have to pry. Like, what is it that's causing this? Is it the team and how they're constructed? Is it the coach tactical way of operating? What's causing? Then he's trying to pry because they were prying about the coach and should he keep the coach? You have to go deeper. I know you have limited time in when you're doing some of these interviews, given sponsorship and all that for these more traditional media, but you have to then get, I would always use the word very intrusive in the question, to make him admit that, you know what, maybe the coach is the problem and not the players. Because we're saying inconsistency. What's inconsistency? What's causing it?
Issues that we have to iron out before we play those 6 games. But we are aware of it now. We're working towards getting it right.
But there is a conversation that more players could come into the setup even at this late stage, which would defeat the purpose that you're talking about now.
Well, yes, to an extent, but quality players make the job easier. So there's about 5 players that we're looking at. We're not sure if they'll come, but they're all quality
But
players.
the chemistry, though.
Yeah,
but there's some of them is just so much better that you still would want to have them playing. I think, though, chemistry is a word in the modern day, which I think is overrated for the simple reason that all the players now understand the different moments of the game. They would have been drilled in it. Is for the coach to choose 1 or 2, get the players to buy into it, that they think they can win. And I think it's easier to coach players now than first time.
That's really interesting, actually. I think what he means is coach players into international level versus otherwise in the coaching. But so do you guys agree with the whole chemistry issue, that chemistry is not an imperative, is not that important as it used to be? Do you guys agree with that view? Adrian Franz said the logic of the long-term development strategy being on a different track from the urgent drive to qualify the World Cup makes sense until the World Cup is over. 2 separate things now. I think you can do 2 at the same time, but if you want to focus on one, yeah, that's right. So do you guys agree with the whole chemistry question, that it's overrated, especially international football? Kieran says, I somewhat agree. By the way, people, we have 234 people in the chat. We only have 154 likes. So for the people who are here, it says 154. It's about 80 people having the like button. What happened to your finger? Crooked? You can't use it, or your fingers them crooked. You know, if you use your thumb now, you can't use another finger and push the like button. Well, I don't mean like, I don't love freeness, I don't get freeness. Hey, people, that's why I used to be and think about quit YouTube, you know. Because you're my frustration. Me all whine now for a little bit. You're my frustration, people. So me spend my time, you know how much time it take me go clip them thing, yeah? Go look for video, for clip and do comparison. Me spend 6-7 hours, and then you know want to give me a little like, but you want to come sit down and listen to the program and interact and engage. Them thing not a fear start. You know, do eat you no? Not unfair. And if you leave the program, me not care. In fact, if you leave, me that probably happy. Because then me that's the 154 and 54 align. Idiot thing.
Question. In regards to the type of opposition that we're going to be playing in the final round of qualifiers here, and it's mainly Caribbean opposition, has there ever been a thought process that you could get probably the best coaching minds in Jamaica to be a part of that backroom setup, knowing that it is going to be Caribbean opposition, and you can throw your hat in the ring if you want?
I don't understand the question, and here is why. So I understand the notion that Rudolph mentioned earlier in the program around the need to have local coaches coach the various teams, the junior teams and the senior teams, men and women. Right, I understand that concept, and a lot of if you look at Spain, for example, they do a lot of that. Right, most coaches want to do that. They have culture, they have process, they have style of play, they have system of play. Everybody comes to the system. But so I understand that whole concept, But I think sometimes we got to think about what you're saying. What you're saying is that the coach can pick his own people, but he's going to be held accountable for his performance. So what if you want to give him somebody and he doesn't want that person? Then does he join you if he's a foreign coach? Because I find that interesting. I do think there should be some way to get local coaches to get their part of their education to what I call the actuality process, which is the practical component of what you're doing. Because theory is good in classes, but you got to go apply it on the field. And they'll also learn, this is not a modern coach, I'm not sure we're going to learn from him. But I find that interesting in terms of the question and his answer because, by the way, you hear Speid answer, which I didn't really agree with.
I thought you were, that was just a straight up question. You're just asking me if I'm going to be part of the coaching.
Yeah.
Because I would have beaten the Caribbean in club championship, right? All the time, right? But
So he rephrased the question. Go ahead. What's the answer?
no, yeah, I mean, for research, definitely, we're looking at getting everybody who can help, especially to the research, but not necessarily to go on the field and coach, but definitely research to make sure the coach has those information that he can use to make it easier for us. Yes.
Wait, is that an official capacity as an official role that you're looking at, or are you just asking a couple of guys to just do some research? Like
No, just a couple of guys. Remember, as I told you before, there's 4 persons going to start their pro license come summer, right? So Jamaica is not a slouch, you know. The truth is, when we look at all we had to do to become a good first-class footballing nation, education was the easiest one and the cheapest one. So that we have invested heavily in education. So these 4 persons will.
No, it's not the cheapest and the easiest. It's the most important. That needs to come out, people. It's the most important. Facilities is important. Money is important. But if you're not teaching me the right way, I can't learn to play football. You can't sell me. I can't be part of the national program. It's the most important. It may be one of the cheaper, but the coaches, I've always said this, Jamaica's biggest problem is the coaching, or lack thereof.
Definitely, come into focus, and others who are just knocking on the door, so we know who would want to target based on their experiences and ask them to help.
For the journey to the World Cup 2026, do you have a plan B?
Plan B?
Yeah.
Plan B to win. You
Okay.
mean plan B to go to the World Cup? Yeah, we have a plan A and plan B and plan C, but it's just what?
Speaking specifically as far as the coaching is concerned, because you obviously want a good start. I think that matches coming up would be a litmus test. We're currently with plan A. Is there, or has there been a conversation as to what could be the plan B?
If what?
If we come off route, if there are losses in those matches, if we drop points, is there a plan B by your committee and the JFF as to the way forward?
Oh, we always have a plan B.
Okay.
But the truth is, not just drop points. We are only out if we lose a game. I don't think dropping a point makes it out, right? Yeah.
But
so we're not going to panic.
Okay.
We're going to be cool and make the right decisions, as we go along.
As far as the future of coaching in Jamaica is concerned, you're pretty much sitting on the throne right now. But as far as what you see the next couple of years, how are you viewing it?
No, this was one of the hardest Premier League. People like Rudolph has improved tremendously after stop.
Choose Advil Liquid Gels for faster, stronger, and longer-lasting relief than Tylenol Rapid Release Gels. Because Advil targets pain at the source of inflammation. So for faster pain relief, Advil, the pain away.
Talking to him.
Yes.
He gave me a warm time. So there is, Peart is a good coach. You can see people like Xavier Gilbert was able to adapt. I thought we were, a little bit ahead of them in the first game, but they came back and fought so hard. They adapted well. The future is bright. There's a lot of bright young coaches coming up, but that was always the idea. We have 9 coaches that have the A license now, 11 in training, and we're going to be doing 24. So we'll have, by next year, you're looking at 44 A license coaches. That's just astonishing. Yeah. 5 years ago, our best coach was at a C license, or less than a C license 5 years ago. So if you look now, we have about 100 coaches B and another 50 pending. And then we have like 300 C license coach and over 1,000 D license. So, we're really moving a lot.
You know how long it's going to get Jamaica to be a good footballing nation, given what he just said? if he's using education and formal education as the way of judging how you develop players, and he's saying 5 years ago the highest was a C license, that means the ones who are getting A license, I don't think they have any pro. He may be one of the pros, if they have any. That means you know how long it's going to take to then, in a practice environment, implement what they've learned in the classroom. And also, normally when you leave the classroom, you're still learning on the job. So if you're teaching bad habits way back when, you've lost a whole multiple generations of players, frankly. It's really interesting. If what he's saying is right, because he's talking about this as is the main thing in terms of how you develop players.
I mean, we're in the atmosphere of people changing nationalities, right? So aren't you a little bit concerned that maybe one of your qualified A coaches will be going somewhere else?
That would be good for them, no?
Yeah, it would be good for them. And we have had coach that did the B license with us, and they went overseas to coach. About 4 of them went. So it will be good. But the rate of turning out coaches and turning over every stone for good coaches, I don't think it's going to matter in the long run. I think we'll be an exporter of coaches soon.
Yeah. All right. Well, you heard it from him. He said soon Jamaica might be an exporter of coaches. Rudolph, a pleasure having you in studio, and hopefully you can visit.
So here's what's interesting, people. I'm confused. What do you think? Give me your view on the interview, because there's something there which I totally miss, which maybe I'm being overly critical, as I probably am sometimes. But tell me your view on the interview, your perspective on the interview, how it went, how Speid came across, how the moderators or the interviewers came across. Did you get everything out of the coaching program you expect to get? Did you expect some questions to be asked that weren't asked? Just give me your perspective. You can call in, actually. The line is open. And let me know. I'm curious. People. Just call. You can call into the program or let me know in the chat your view on the interview, how you thought it went, how Speid did, things like crazy. And your view on the whole coaching process and what they're trying to accomplish in Jamaica, which is, as he's saying, get to the point where not only have coaches across all different levels, but also exporting coaches. Come on, people, don't be cynical. Don't be cynical. You guys don't believe what he was saying, huh? Is that it? That's what Patrick is saying. Girls, I'm saying interviewers pushing for local coaches usual. The anti-heritage players and international coach. Yeah, look, I mean, most people are going to want to push for things that are local. We understand that, but I think the lack of broadening of the thought process sometimes is a challenge for people in Jamaica, especially people who are sitting certain seats, especially local media, even local YouTubers from Jamaica. Not all of them, but some of them. You hear them speaking, you're just like, really? And then I started to ask myself, maybe I am the problem because I view things a little bit different from how they view it. Maybe what seat you sit in informs how you operate. So I'll leave it alone. Yeah. Speid is wearing a FIFA jacket, speaking as the JFF technical chairman. Plus, he is the technical director owner of Cavalier. Yeah. That conflict is not going anywhere. One thing that Rudolph mentioned was that there's going to be about 5 players who are on the horizon. That he didn't definitely say they were coming, but they were out there that are either they're in the consideration or they're considered coming. And then the question was pushed to him as well. I'm gonna put it in my own words. Isn't that a little bit disruptive given where we are and bringing in more players? And what he also indicated was, look, the quality of the players matter, right? And he believes that these players are at a certain level where they can adapt. But someone just texted me and says we're producing coaches like cars, mass production. The question is it going to be effective? But it's interesting actually, where if you think about it, where the team is, they are, there's about 5 players. We're not getting all 5 players in September. I'll just say that we're not. But He's probably right on the potential number. And I'll just say this about Rudolph, because some people think I'm a Rudolph hater. Some people believe that since I had dinner with Rudolph, I've been converted. I can't even convert myself, much as be converted. I'm struggling with that. Oh, I got a notice here saying the latest version of some browsers, Chrome and Firefox, seem to have introduced a conflict that is causing studio instability. So when I finish with this program, I got to figure out something is. Probably got to update my browsers actually. But when I had dinner with Rudolph, and he won't mind me saying this, I got a sense in our discussion that he's not opposed to players of a certain level. I'm gonna give you an example. So he wouldn't be opposed to Premier League players coming to the team and supplementing the team. I got that sense in the discussion. But he may not necessarily feel the same way if you come from League 2 or National League or League 1. That's my sense, right? In my discussion with him. So I don't think I'm giving him any big secret or undermining him. I got that sense in our discussion. And I think that came out in the interview where the players who are supposed to be coming in are at a certain level. They're not League 2 players or League 1 players. And so therefore, because of that, he's very receptive to them coming in, especially, and this is important, especially since we're not playing well. Hey, Unseen, you hit the like button, Unseen, because it looked like YouTubers who come to my channel don't hit the like button, you know. Unseen, bless up, Unseen. Reggae Boyz said, good interview, but nothing he said was new to me. He has been saying the same thing for a few years. So here's my problem with the interview, and maybe I missed it. I hear nothing mentioned about the players the coaches are going to be coaching, meaning not national players, but JPL players, high school players, primary school players. Maybe you guys can tell me if I'm totally off. I didn't hear nothing about that. What I heard about were the coaches, the accreditation they're going to receive, the possibility of exporting coaches, the magnitude of the volume of the coaches. I didn't hear nothing about the players who they're going to be coaching and the development. Not even in the comment was there anything about, you know what? How long will it get our players to be playing at a certain level? Good night.
How are you doing, Kranky?
I'm doing well, Andre. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, doing very good. I just need about 90 seconds.
90 seconds, so I start counting.
Yeah, I don't need the whole 5 minutes.
Okay.
You glossed over something that I think you should elaborate on, because when the whole coaching education thing started in the Caribbean, Trinidad was on the forefront of it. And you just said that you don't think Speid gave Trinidad the credit they deserve.
I didn't glance. No, I didn't glance over it. I didn't glance over it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That's fine.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And at that time, I remember the conversation in this space was that the license is useless, right? And the person that responsible that I was putting it together, he did an interview on the management show and explained what it, on I Am Sure Sports explained what it was about. And now it's the same schematic that it's now been offered by the JFF.
Right, but I don't think I glanced over it. In fact, I called it out because it wasn't really mentioned. So that's not glancing. I called it out and says more than once. And I mentioned it's a money-making machine for Trinidad. So here's a question. Who's getting the money? Since Pete said the JFF didn't initiate the program, it was a bunch of 5 or 6 coaches. And he mentioned only 20% will go to the JFF, or they offer them 20%. Who gets the other 80%? No, I'm going to do my post-analysis. I didn't glance over it.
Right, so he told you who's getting the money. 20% goes to the JFF, which is...
He didn't tell me who get the 80%, though.
Yeah, he told you.
No, he didn't. You could infer it, but he didn't tell us. Right? He could infer, say, you're going to go to the coaches who initiate the program. Is it all those coaches? Are there more coaches added? You don't know who's getting the money. You assume who it is, but you don't know.
Yeah, but if I put something together, all right,
all right,
I offered it to you and tell you you're going to get 20%, I mean, where's the other 80% most likely going? I don't think there's any...
Right, but okay, suppose you added 5 or 6 people to the process, who are also now instructors, right? That could be part of your cost, but they also could profit, right?
But
Go ahead.
but that's what the 80% pay for. You pay for the instructors, you pay for whatever it provides.
No, but we're talking
It- it-
about who gets the money. Forget about their instructors. Who actually gets the money? Is Speid getting 50%? Is what very good is involved? Are the initial originators, leaders,
Next.
pioneers? Are they getting right? We don't know who getting the money. We don't know.
All right, next time you have dinner with him, you could ask him that.
That may never happen. You guys think that look. I'll say this. I'll say that loud because people like to beat people. I was surprised Speid decided to have dinner with me. I'm serious. I text him and says I'm coming to Jamaica. I text two people, by the way, and one didn't reply to my thing. The one didn't reply I was surprised about, but that's okay. I won't call him out. But Speid says fine, and he came late, meaning he had a meeting. He was doing some big meeting, and he said, you still want to meet XYZ? I was appreciative of the meeting because I want to have the conversation. I don't come here, people, just to create chaos. I want to be a solver of problems and engage people and try to help fix the program. I'm not here just to beat. And if people want to be here to beat, I'm not in that. I'm here to be a problem solver or try to be a problem solver, not come here and just bash people and people feel good. No, that's not good. Come to the table with solutions. That's why I don't come to the table. But go ahead, Andre.
No, that's all I wanted to mention. And the coaching education bit of it seems to have now taken on a life of its own in the Caribbean. And I think, as you alluded to, coaching education is important. But it just seems as though everything else before getting the license needs to be rubbish, trash, and the license is the thing that that gives you the ability to coach.
Yeah, I'll just say this. I'll just say this actually, which is I think they're both very important, but I do think the combination is, to me, optimum. And the reason why I say that is it can't be by chance that Spain have the most coaches with the license at the upper tier of where they are in Europe, and they're the ones producing all the best coaches, and they're the one producing the best football. I don't think those things are just by chance, right? Because they're gonna get jobs. The coaches who come before them help to get the ones behind them jobs, if that makes any sense.
Right, and they're working within an infrastructure too that has a definite
that help them to that supports them being able to do what they're doing.
Right. So it's a number of things, and it's not just the one thing in terms of just getting a coaching license. Because I can tell you, you mentioned several things, and I can tell you that there's a lot of people here in the U.S. with coaching license, and the U.S. have a very good program. A lot of people with it with A license and all sorts of stuff, and they can develop a player for the life of them, and they can't win a football match, right?
Right.
So what's the value of the license then? I think the license.
No, but I would take a different spin on that. So just let me explain. No. Let me jump in first, and I'm gonna come back to you. I'll just say this. So it's almost like saying, you know what? You can not go to college and become a doctor or a lawyer, frankly, if the environment allowed you to go take the exam, just study on your own. You have a better chance of being successful if you go to a formal environment, to learn an environment, because it's a collective environment. Your individual ability, coupled with those around you, coupled with the instruction you get, helps you to get to a certain place, and society recognizes that, right? So we agree that some people will fail out of school, some people will pass, will cheat and get through the process, some people will get through the process successfully and not be successful in the practical environment. It's no different from if you learn on your own versus if you learn a formal environment. I just think you have more chance to be successful if you're in a formal environment coupled with the practical environment, and we see that in society at large. You go ahead now. The floor is yours.
But just for clarity, I am not saying that the coaching education is not important, because I've learned a lot from the coaching education that I've done with US Soccer. There's a lot of things that they brought to the table that was helpful. So I'm not saying that at all, but I do know that the informal learning is very, very important, and that's what a lot of times makes the difference between coaches. And we can't make the same mistakes in the Caribbean that has been made around us if we just.
But is informal learning part of the problem though, that the Caribbean faces? Because as Speid was saying, when they asked me the question, he's being facetious, saying somebody had to win when they didn't have formal learning. Because here's the problem with informal learning. Who are you learning from?
Well, that's the point I was waiting to make. Right? When I say informal learning, where do you get your informal learning? Right? Who are you spending time around? So if you live in the Caribbean and you go into Arsenal Football Club and spend a month, spend 2 months, you go there twice a year, or maybe once a year, that for me is valuable. Plus you're coaching as you go along. So it's not just informal learning because you're coaching somewhere, because I can tell you what he's referencing from a long time ago. I don't know it's right to say that somebody had to win, but guys were doing what they were doing based on their understanding. Right? And as they...
When I grew up, the coaches weren't coaches. They were physical education teachers. They just weren't coaches. They were teaching you how to be, they weren't teaching you strategy, tactic. They're teaching you how to be fit, basically. You ain't learn nothing from them. In a more formal environment, people are pulling from, it's like you have internet now, right? I don't have to go to the library and walk and go find books. I can go just Google and get whatever I want right where I sit, right? The concept of learning in a structured environment is you collating all this information. It's structured, it's put in place where you can actually pull out what's important for you to learn. And you can also learn from others because they're bringing things in from different perspectives, from different regions, from different locations, different thought process, and they bring it all in a more structured environment for you to learn. So it would actually, to me, it should be better versus you just going and learning from some coach who may not be good. That's who you learn from, and you learn bad habits. At least now you can challenge what you're learning, which is what he sort of mentioned in the discussion, because you have other things that inform your learning.
Right, and just last thing before I go, one of the things that I see is happening frequently is that a guy goes through the course in the Caribbean and he gets a national team to coach, right? And this could be a young coach that doesn't know if his own ideas about the game work because he really haven't spent a lot of time on the pitch with young people trying to figure things out. So he gets a national team to coach and just because he got the license. And I think we need to revisit that because you need your best coaches at the youngest age groups.
That's the point I've been making, Andre. All I'm hearing is about these coaches that are coaching the JPL. It's too late. That's obviously I mentioned players. I don't hear anything about primary school and high school because that's when you need the coaching the most, right?
Well, one of the things that they could learn from here when the US started the Development Academy, they started at the U19 age group or something like that, U19, U17, whatever age it was at the time, U18.
Right.
They started at the top, which, in my opinion, was a mistake because it took them a few years down the road to realize, well, maybe we should have started from the bottom, go up, right? 3 years later, you'd have, if you started with 11 and 12-year-old kids, 3 years later, you had 14, 15-year-old kids that would have been in a better place.
Right.
So a lot of things that we are looking at in the Caribbean have been done somewhere else and have been succeeded or it have failed. We just need to look around and pay a little bit of attention. And it's just like coaching, right? If you're not exposed to the game and to coaches with experience and that kind of stuff, it's going to be difficult for you to know what works and what doesn't work. So I think that's one of the adjustments you need to make.
I think that's very important what you mentioned it. So Rudolph, by the way, Rudolph's in the chat, people. Rudolph just dropped the element about the 80% where it goes to. It's not what I'm putting from what he's saying is that it ain't going to his pocket or the people who originated his pocket. That's what he's basically saying. So yeah, I missed my train of thought though, Andre. You just said something. Oh, the whole concept of these people, which is this. But let's just go for Rudolph and the JFF and the coaching fraternity in Jamaica. Now, you're what I call a self-contained environment. And my question is, how do you truly assess the capability of those coaches when you're going to bring them to run the national team? Is it based on how they do in the JPL, in Manning Cup, in the Caribbean, or how they do in CONCACAF? What's the body of work that inform your perspective and inform their resume to determine if they should be elevated to what I call the highest level in the land, which is coaching national teams? Because if you're in a self-contained environment, that to me, as you mentioned before, Rudolph, around, somebody had to win, So before you had formal education, you couldn't judge a coach's ability. What's the method and criteria we're going to use to assess those coaches to then say, hey, he's at the point where he should be elevated to the national team? What's the performance measurements that we're using? And what's the body of work that they need to have? Because I welcome the question when someone says, you know what? I've always said this. You have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's very important to do so, which means you have to put yourself in foreign environment where, you know what? You're not sure what direction to go in, but it's going to help you expedite your learnings and your resume if you want to say, for example, coach a national team. What does that mean? That means you have to leave Jamaica. You get your license in Jamaica, you go coach someplace else, you go in different environment, or you even expand that. You know what? I'm going to try to go to Spain and learn from individuals who are excellent at what they do and bring that back to me to the island if that's what my objective is, or I go coach someplace else. So I guess the question is, how do you really judge somebody that they've attained? Because to me, I've said this numerous times, the Caribbean is no longer the barometer. The Caribbean can't get you to the World Cup. Junior team, senior team, it doesn't. Well, now it may be because we have 3 teams from this region who are going automatically. So now we only have Caribbean teams in our zone. But that's not the norm. The norm is different. Your view on that, Andre?
Yeah, I agree. You have to. I think you as a coach, you need to have a body of work that people could examine. You have to be, because at the early age group, you're talking about the development of talent. These are young kids, and they still have a long way to go. Playing for the national youth team is just another part of the development process that giving them exposure at the international level. And you need to have a coach. You need to have coaches at that level of the game that is able to continue the development of these players, the growth of these players. So I think when you put somebody that does not have that body of work to say, well, they have done a decade of coaching, 5 years of coaching, and they have something to show, well, okay, I have done this, and this is what it looks like, this is what I've accomplished, then I think you're taking a risk that could lose generations of players if you continue to do that. And I think that is happening from the time the coaching education started. That's been happening, and I think when we look at I don't want to really. I watch a lot of football. And I watch under 15 football in Portugal, all around the world, right? And when you look at the last Caribbean tournament that Jamaica won, I didn't see the quality that I see in different parts of the world. Right? When I watch a Benfica under 15, for example, playing Sporting.
Andre, let me cut you first. I can say this: the Caribbean is not the barometer. I must say this 101 times, and because it still bothers me. Didn't our under 20 team, Jamaica under 20 team, win the Caribbean? Did they win to get to the last phase of the under 20 when they played in what? Where they played in El Salvador? They won it, right? They won to get there. They end up getting 15-0. So it can't be the barometer that we're using to assess the quality of our players and our teams. It cannot be. When you go play Latin America, you go play the US, you go play Canada, you go play Costa Rica, you go play Panama, and you do well against them, then I get impressed. And even then, it's still a struggle because there is the rest of the world, right? But I'm not going to be impressed with us in the Caribbean because us in Trinidad should be doing well in the Caribbean. Now we're seeing places like Dominican Republic getting to World Cups that we're not getting to, are playing better football than we are when they're a baseball country, or was a baseball country. They go to Spain and leveraging Spain to help them. One point I didn't make on the thing, and Rudolph, I'm calling you out on this. Rudolph mentioned Belgium as the example Jamaica used when he was thinking about coaching and how effective coaching is. And he mentioned Belgium was in the 60s and now they're ranked in the top 10 on a continuous basis because he's then saying the program works. So why would you go to England and hire somebody when England don't have the coaching pedigree to suggest how it works? Now, I'm sure it does because England have good teams and they have good infrastructure and they have a lot of money. But if Belgium was the barometer, why would we go to England to go draw the coach when England is going to Spain to get most of their coach or going to other places to get most of their coaches?
You know where to get the answer for that. I can't help you with that. And I don't think anybody in the chat can help do that either. But at the end of the day, the whole idea, I think when you listen to the interview that you just played, the whole idea, when you listen to the whole idea that he's putting forward, it makes sense. They're trying to develop the football, and as you know, with any new project or business, there's going to be growing pains. Just like, look, as I mentioned earlier on, to some people, the license was no good, whether it's because it was coming out of Trinidad or they didn't understand the whole idea behind it, and now the license is being embraced. There was a report early on that was saying that the coaches in Jamaica wasn't doing it because they consider it to be no good. Now, Rudolph said in that interview that they're going to have 44 A coaches and they have 100 and something B coaches or whatever the numbers were. So obviously, people now have a better understanding of it, and they're doing it, and that's a good thing. I think we just need to make sure that just because somebody get it, it doesn't mean that they're entitled to coach a national team, or they gotta go and grind and figure out and learn about their ideas, learn about what works and what doesn't work before they get players at that level. Because the idea of qualifying for every World Cup, it's a great thought, it's a great idea, but it's probably harder to get to than it's easier said than done.
Hey, by the way, Rudolph, you can call into the program, Rudolph. You can call in if you want. It would be better than the last time you call in where you chewed me out. Well, I would say chewed me out. We had a difference of opinion, and it was verbalized in the most how do you put it, strenuous of ways. It was a very difficult conversation. You can call in, Rudolph. Go ahead, Andre.
What is Conrad Smith saying? Could you help me with that?
Probably just it. I didn't see it. It's past. It's past. I can't see every single thing that's put up there. It's past.
I'm thinking like Trinidad locally. I don't. That's so far from the truth. But that's okay. Let me clear the line so that
all right.
Call in.
All right, Andre. Thanks.
All right, take care.
Buenos noches.
Yes,
hello.
Kranky.
Yes. Who am I speaking to?
G.
What do you have to say, G?
Yeah. Listen to me. Speid will never fire that coach,
Why?
You know, he's a salesman. You remember him when we go to the tournament, right? We might talk about the brother where we name King.
Yeah.
Somebody chance. He never go fire him.
So what you're saying, he's not firing him because he's supportive of his players? Is that what you're saying?
He can sell players at the lower tier team.
Okay.
Respect my youth.
All right, let's up. So that's one view, which is that Rudolph has a relationship with the coach, and the coach is supportive of Rudolph players. I'm just paraphrasing, and therefore that's why Rudolph won't fire him. I'm sure Rudolph would come back and say, well, he doesn't fire the coach. It's a collective decision based on the board, but he will give his input. I'm not speaking on behalf of Rudolph, but I'm sure that's will be part of the response to it. I will say this, though. The coach did promote King quite a bit. Unlike any coach I've seen in terms of coaching Jamaica team and their perspective on a given player. I haven't done any research to figure if that's a very unique way of operating, but yeah. But Rudolph did say he has contingency plan, right? He did say on the program that he has plan B and C, even though the plans are focused on making the World Cup. But he did say he has contingency plans. So we'll see what happens after the first two games. Good night. Good night.
Okay, Mr. Spencer, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
How you doing, family? I would say in regards to coaching, as you said, both things can work at the same time. We can pursue our World Cup dreams, which should be first and foremost while developing the coaches. I think one of the things that I've said in the chat that people are ignoring, we need to look at how we're performing at the U20 and the U23 level. as you said, on a Caribbean and a CONCACAF scale. We have been struggling at that level massively. Jamaica used to be, you could easily say, one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the Caribbean at the U20 and U23 level, even U17. We are behind Dominican Republic. We are behind Cuba. We are behind Haiti on the national team level. We have lost to them on the past 2 cycles, and coaching is one of the parts that need to be addressed with that at the younger levels.
Yeah, no, look, I do think sometimes the focus is so much on the more senior teams because it's what we follow all the time. But the feeder for the senior teams are the junior players. What I would love to see at some point is the coaching construct in Jamaica, along with the JFF, being able to develop players so they can compete. Because right now, to me, they can't compete. Or they're not competing on the right level.
Our U20s especially are not competing.
No, I'm just talking about across the board. What I mean by this is even the senior team, if you look at the diaspora players who are citizens versus local, they're not competing. To me, it's all about the coaching. So if Rudolph can get the coaching to be at a point where, you know what, coaches actually know what they're talking about, but he has to push it down quicker because he's talked about 2030, 2024. I don't think it's going to be 2030 if I'm starting at the JPL level a lot or the Division II level versus the high school, the primary school, to make sure those individuals are educated and they have at least, because if you look at the structure in Europe about what license you have, you can't coach no under 17 person with no B license.
Yeah, exactly. You're correct about that.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have to get the coaches at a certain level. Now, there's compensation issue in Jamaica, which we know, it's not every country. But you have to get the person at a certain level to impart that knowledge to the kids so they can develop those skill sets to be able to compete at their level or when they get to the more high level at JPL, and they can compete with their counterparts who may be naturalized. And so we don't have this diaspora versus local, or we have it, but it's a better conversation. Because right now, to me, it's not a good conversation because we're trying to force players in the team sometime who shouldn't be in the team. And then we complain about people being anti-local when, frankly, we haven't done the best job of developing them. And when we see them play and we do our own individual assessment based on our football knowledge and or the optics, we're saying, no, this doesn't make sense.
I agree with you on that, Kranky. And the other part that comes into factor, where you and I live, things of coaches being able to spend a certain amount of time and spending a year or 2 here and then coming back. Some of that travel has been clipped. So now we have to value our local education, our local coaching education system more, because that it has to be your starting point now, because it's no longer, the pathways into US and Canada are a little bit slower now. And then more people have to go the Europe or the UK route. So having the coaching certifications that are recognized regional wise, CONCACAF then might put you in a UEFA C per se if you start your training is a good thing. And that's where this program, I think that's where the recognition is important, because in Jamaica, cost wise, it is cost wise a bit more cost effective to start your lower level coaching certification in Jamaica than trying to do all those things overseas for a greater cost.
All right. Yep.
Yeah. Respect, Roberto.
Yeah, man. Bless. Thanks for the call as usual. Bless up. Have a good evening. Jason Kranky hopes we get the young coaches involved in the coaching class. No old coaches with bad habits should be. Well, no, I don't. Since I'm old, Tycoon, I want to use no age discrimination. I used to get everybody want to be involved. You want to permeate the environment with coaches with the right level of coaching. You do. You want to do like Spain does. Have coaches everywhere at every level, but they also have a football philosophy. So Rudolph is in the chat, and me have to beat Rudolph now. Rudolph, a beating time. Rudolph and I were on another program way back when, and we argued about Spain, and we argued about football philosophy. I actually went and looked it up today, Rudolph. I didn't bring it out today, but I looked up and I clipped it. I recorded all of it, clipped it, because Rudolph was arguing with me about Spain and their accomplishment when I was arguing about he should get a Spain coach, not even a Spanish coach. And I was asking the question, do we have football philosophy? And Rudolph never answered that question, right? And today, when he was in the conversation, it came up again about him saying about need to have a football philosophy, which we don't have. And he hopes to acquire that as he goes through the coaching process, and everyone is educated the same way, and they can teach the same way. So we'd have a football philosophy. But I guess the question for you, Rudolph, is that really part of the construct about how it would operate? When are we gonna get a technical? Rudolph, you should come on the program, Rudolph. You should call in. When are we gonna get technical director? And when are we gonna have the whole setup where we develop the reporter called it an identity? We develop a football philosophy, and then we're gonna have a style of play that comes out of that. Right? Brazil's football philosophy basically is like, you know what? It's more individual. It's the individual. It's creative. They gotta play their style of football. Germany is much more structured, right? It's much more structured. It's much more direct. It plays a certain way. It's much more tactical. When are we going to have our football philosophy? And then what informs that is, I'd love to see, is us playing possession football. What I've said, you have to differentiate players. On the 17 elite players is different from on the 17 grassroots players. This is where the difference in the coach matters. No, but I think before we even get to 17, Rudolph, you start playing football at 5, 6, 7, 8. If you get bad teaching that informs how you play for the next 6, 7 years of 13, 14, you carry that through. You have muscle memory, and it's bad muscle memory versus good muscle memory. So that's why it's very important to say, you know what? Because you also have late bloomers in football, right? You have late bloomers in football, sometimes quite a bit. In fact, sometimes the people who are early in the process and look the best are not the best ones for different reasons, right? So you got to think about, how do I have no child left behind in that whole construct? And how do I make it really work for the country so the country can benefit and every kid has an opportunity who wants to play the sport to be developed the right way so they can produce the best of themselves? Devin is saying, coaching education, the first step, but then we have to put a proper structure in place to play properly. I simply believe the students in Jamaica do not play enough football. Well, frequency of play may be one thing, Devin, but I just think a lot of it is technical, right? As I've said a lot of times, and I hear Rudolph saying that more recently, so Rudolph may have borrowed that from me, even though he will deny that and protest it. I have been beating the drum that the Caribbean, not just Jamaica, doesn't produce midfielders. I'm getting a call from no caller ID. Good night. Good night.
Yeah, Kranky.
Yes. Who's this?
Yeah, the name is Lance.
How you doing, Lance?
All right. Yes. I know. This is a program, man. This is kind of refreshing because I talked on the program a couple of times already about the style and philosophy, and the type of soccer that we play. But you look at the way Jamaica play, and Jamaica played different. I mean, especially in this past Gold Cup, Jamaica play a different style of soccer from everybody, and I'm saying it in a negative way. I always talk about the South American style or the Spanish style, the style that they play in Spain. It's beautiful to watch, and I'm just disappointed that we can't. Are you still there, Kranky?
I'm listening to you.
Yes. Okay, I'm still disappointed that we can't play that style of soccer. I even look at Trinidad. I mean, the Trinidad players, they play an attractive style. It seems as if they have a better possession style than Jamaica. So I'm very, very encouraged from this conversation. But one thing it seems as if we're kind of failed to address is the field, the pitch. The soccer infrastructure. It's not just the coaches. The coaches, yes, extremely important. Just like in track, the reason why Jamaicans are doing that good in track is because we have good coaches. Some people might say, okay, it's a different type of sports because it's more individualistic, which in a case I agree, but you have to develop individual in soccer.
I would say this, the coaches in track and field are credible, right? When you hear them talk the sport, they know the sport. When you talk about running and phases in running and when you get out of here, they know the sport, right? They know the sport. They're informed about the sport. It's very obvious. They're world-class coaches. The football is miles behind. I see making a comment here about it's a work in progress. How long have we been playing football? You know how long we've been playing football? Probably more than 100 years now. It's been a work in progress for a long time. Go ahead.
But there's a big gap between the soccer coaches and the quality of the soccer coaches in Jamaica and the quality of the track and field coaches. There's a big gap, in the quality. But I just want to kind of move away from the coaches. Maybe I'll come back to it a little later. The field, the infrastructure, in the soccer in Jamaica, I haven't seen any kind of improvement since I was in high school. When you look at the field, we're still playing on these good pen, whatever you call them, these co-pastures. Even the national stadium, yes, is a little better, but it shouldn't be just the national stadium. It should be right across Jamaica from high school to the stadium and everything in between. We need to really take pride in what the kind of pitches that we're playing on. I can't remember which court, it might be Hogan. I think he said that in, where is he from? Iceland? I think he said in Iceland the players are responsible for maintaining the field. But one foreign coach did mention something like that taking care of the pitch is not just for the maintenance crew, but is the duties of the player to really help to maintain the pitch. But we have to do something about the pitch because it affects the way we train. It affects everything. You look at these guys when they play, they pass the ball. They don't pass the ball crisp and fast and they run to the best of their ability because we are known to be fast. They pass very slow and like they're just coming from a park last night. You can't do that on a bumpy pitch. You can't pass the ball on a bumpy pitch. The ball is gonna, the ball is gonna bump and you're not gonna control it properly. When you take a shot, it's gonna go over the net because you didn't anticipate the bounce. So we need to do something on the pitches. But the coaching, this is something that we should have done from 1998. I keep saying, this is where something you and I disagree. I will agree that we need to go out and recruit as much players, quality players. Let me make that distinction. Quality players from the diaspora. But I do think that, when in 1998, we got an influx of a lot of foreign players that help us. Okay, we should continue to do that. The last time I said that, I think it's Calarat kind of attacked me and said, hey, man, this guy's xenophobic. No, I'm not saying that we should turn our backs on the heritage players. Go out and recruit. But at the same time, I think we had a wrong philosophy. We put a lot of emphasis on recruiting, which we should, right? But not at the expense of not developing our players at home.
But I don't think the two are correlated. Actually, I think there was just negligence in Jamaica in the understanding what is needed and what does good development look like. Because there are a lot of coaches who believe that they were good coaches, but then I'm sure some of them got found out when you put in a more formal structure. So I wouldn't say the recruiting is correlated to the development of players there. They're mutually exclusive. Players get recruited at a point. Players get recruited at a point in time, right? They get recruited at a point in time. It's not like JFF doesn't do the best job of recruiting. I've said that numerous times. They don't.
No, I'm not saying that the fact that they went out and recruit players, they kind of dropped the ball at home. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
This is something that they should have done both or equally as well. You understand?
But I don't think they recruit well.
They don't. So maybe they need to do a better job in both departments.
Yeah, look, I would like all kids, whether they're overseas or locally, to have the best chance of developing and maximize their potential. And all who may aspire to play for a national team be able to play for the national team, whether they get naturalized or whether they are born in Jamaica. That should be the objective.
True.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say this, and this might be controversial right now. I really think that Jamaica depends. They really, over the years, from 98 until now, they depend a lot on recruiting abroad, which I'm not saying that they shouldn't. They should, at the expense of not developing. You know what I'm saying?
No, but again, you're going back to the fact that the two are correlated currently. I don't think they are.
Well, if it sounds that way, maybe that's not what I mean. But I'm just saying, okay, maybe
No. If what you're saying is that, you know what, we need to develop players at home the right way so they can compete, I totally agree with that.
Right. Okay. Well, I agree. Well, maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Because it just seemed as if they were not, they turned their back against developing players abroad. I mean, at the same time they were developing players in Jamaica. At the time they were looking abroad, which they should continue or even improve on that, they should also put some resources in working with the players home.
Well, I think that's what the coaching or program is about, right? Because you develop a coaching program to develop the players. I was just a little bit disappointed in the questions in the interview. The players were never truly mentioned, except the players in the Reggae Boyz national team. There was no push on, you know what? So they asked the question about when we can get the coaches, for example, to the coaching national team, and Rudolph says, set up after 2030. No question was asked about when we will get the local players to get to the level where they can compete. Because right now, to me, if you have 2 or 3 national teams, they're not competing. If I believe the population is divided half and half, they're not competing.
Right. That's true. And your I forget his name there, the guy from Trinidad that was
Andre.
on the program. Andre. Now you guys were talking about the coaches, getting A license and B license. I think it probably take a generation, because even though a coach might get an A license from Jamaica, I think you have to be in that system over a period of time. You have to play in a good club, and then from a good club now you become an A license. You know what I'm saying? The kind of soccer that you play influence the type of coach you're gonna be. So a lot of these coaches, yes, they might get a license, but they're not used to playing in a good league, or they're not in that environment where they're familiar with playing good soccer. So it's gotta take.
Well, if you couple the practical with the formal structure, and you play in a league that's not good, you should be able to win that league. I think Rudolph sort of inferred that in his commentary about Rudolph Austins and Peart and others who were coaching. Some people coaching JPL, some of them who have A-license coaching in football, in schoolboy football. And he's saying theirs are the ones who are elevating to the top, right? Because he believes, I'm going to put words in his mouth, but it appears what he's saying is that those coaches who go to the formal program, couple what they have learned before, are the ones who are doing better than those who may not have gone to the program.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, sir.
Great. All right.
Yeah, man.
Kranky, you're still in New York? You're still in New York?
No, right now, I live in New York, but I'm not in New York currently. I'm on the road.
Okay. I have to catch up with you when you come back. All right.
All right. Bless up, man.
All right.
All right, please, peace.
Good.
All right, people, you can call into the program. I'm going to close it down, because I said the main part of the show was to sort of talk to the interview and get your perspective, provide different perspective. Look, I think having a coaching program, a more structured one, you can never knock formal education, especially the education, the underpinning of the education is that it's based on learnings which have been tried and proven, right? So what do I mean by that? If we're saying CONCACAF, who are supposed to be informed parties, are going to audit the program and give their blessing or ask it to be enhanced, then that has to be a good thing. Because if it's gone through the scrutiny that it should go through to make sure it satisfies the requirements that CONCACAF and FIFA think that a program should have, if it's gone through that, it's implemented, it's put into effect, it's working, and they signed off on it and say they blessed it, and it gets the accreditation, then you would hope that that then translates to us improving the kids and the players in Jamaica. And I'm always going to talk about this, that they can then compete. Because right now, from where I sit, when you get 2 or 3 people in the national team, or you force number 5 and number 6 in, when most people are saying they probably shouldn't be in, that's not a good thing. And as the caller just said, that Rudolph needs to answer is, Rudolph, from where you sit, what's the timeline for those players to get to the right level? We're not talking about drips and drab of 1 or 2 players coming through, the Fullers, the Bibbies, the Sheltons and all of that. We're not talking about those players. We're talking about a volume of players coming through where there is no situation where we're sitting and saying, you know what? We're questioning the integrity of the process, or we're questioning the ability of the player, right? We're not ambivalent about this. We're clear that, you know what? This player has quality. He just wanted to get the opportunity. Or, you know what? When we're really arguing, we're not saying player A versus B and player B who's over from the diaspora is just better and it's unfair for them to get. I'm going to mention what I've talked about before. We are really struggling with the ability of the player and how do we pick one because they're so close in ability. Now, some people will come and say, well, I think JPL is better than League 2 and they're better than League 1. And I heard Paul Edwards say that tonight about League 1 players. When I see the players play, the question is, where's JPL rank in world football versus, say, League 1 in England, for example? That's the question. It's hard to discern. We don't have good barometers to judge. But if I look at the players that I see in both locales, in both places, I can't say JPL is better than League 1. I'm not sure JPL is better than League 2. Now, improved coaching will help that significantly. And would expect improved coaching to help that, because the more the coaches improve, the better they get, the more they challenge themselves, the more they get scrutinized, the more they can then deliver, the better players we'll have, and the better teams we'll have, and the better football we'll have. And my last point is going to be this. We need to get a technical director in place. We need to get the coaching up to speed as quick as possible. We need to develop a footballing philosophy at some point, because right now we don't have one. We can't talk to one. We've been playing football too long not to have one. Now, it's going to be hard for that to be effected inside the Reggae Boyz national team anytime soon, because most of the players are from the diaspora. And the question is, Rudolph seems to infer or suggest that their adaptation should not be difficult, given to the modern football. But if the local players who are being transferred to the national team, there's no style of play, there's no system of play, there's no philosophy that they can leverage to inform them as they get to the more national level, it becomes difficult. Chris Smith saying, Dixon make Jamaica team and can't make Charlton Ben. That's your answer. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the comparative that's made, which is difficult, maybe unfair to Dixon. But it's a fair comparison between Dixon and Tyrese Campbell, which is the question I asked the coach last time. It's a fair comparison. And the coach is one of those individuals who doesn't engender confidence in audiences because of how he operates and because of what he says and how he contradicts himself and how it seems hypocritical when he says certain things and his actions doesn't align with what he says sometimes, right? Or when you ask him a question, he says a good question, but he don't give you an answer. He talks around in circles. And I'm going to say this in my last point. He's a part-time coach. He's a part-time coach. Now, if I was in his seat, and people, when I'm doing the YouTube, I don't do YouTube part-time, you know. Even though I ain't getting paid no money for YouTube. And people don't want to hit the like. People don't even want to hit the like button, much less. So you're going to get paid. I don't get paid for YouTube. Seriously. YouTube a monkey money I get. My YouTube calculation last time was $1 an hour, which is slave labor. I should be suing for minimum wage for YouTube. But if you are McLaren and you are in your 60s, and this may be your last job, don't you go out and do it to the best of your ability? You're on the road. You're going to different places to watch players play. You're in Jamaica engaging people. Don't you want to leave a lasting legacy and make the best impression and try to get the team? Don't you want to do that? Versus from where I sit, and I hear it's improving, working part-time. How do you even live with yourself? Seriously. It doesn't make any sense to me. I know people sometimes think that's unfair, but somebody got to try to spur the man on to take the job seriously and work. Maybe losing or not playing well will be the thing that drives him to know he's to be at a job. I know people keep talking about assistant coach. You're the owner. You're the coach. You run the program. It's you they talk about. They don't talk about an assistant coach when you get accolades or when you lose. You ain't talking about an assistant coach. Yes, we need good people around us. No man's an island. Not disagreeing with that. But you're gonna be the one to get called out. It ain't Trevor Sinclair. It ain't Maron Gordon. And people beat Maron, they don't beat Trevor. I wonder why that is. Maybe because Maron pick a lot of players local players that goes in the team. But at the end of the day, it has to be where the coach is earning his money. Right? And here's another thing too. I'm gonna say this to Rudolph. What I would hate to see Rudolph is that we take advantage of local coaches. What do I mean by that? So if we bring in Hogrimson for $500,000, and we bring in this other part-time coach, whose wages should be probably cut in half, let's say he makes $250 to $400, and we bring a local coach and we pay him $50,000, that's unfair. And that means you don't appreciate. That means that, because, you know, in the corporate environment, people, you get sued for this. If you pay somebody an amount, it doesn't mean that has to be equivalent, but it has to be fair compensation given the role and what the job requires. Right? Now, for local coaches, sometimes it's a lot of money if they're getting a certain amount of money. But to me, it's unfair to have one party come in, especially if the person is not from Jamaica, and you pay them a certain amount, then some local person come in, and you may say, well, I don't have the money. Well, how did you find the money to pay Schaefer, or to pay Hogrimson, or to pay this new coach? But then when you pay people like Tapa, who's doing the same job, who may have a better record, you can't find no money. That don't make no sense to me. And that's unfair to those coaches. That means you undervalue them. That means you don't rate them, and they're not being treated fairly. So if we go down the route of having excellent coaches in the Caribbean who come to these programs, the compensation needs to be reflective of what the role entails and the value they bring to the table. Otherwise, you're just putting someone to fill the slot, and you don't think they're good at what they do. That's my last point. I'll say this, people. First of all, thanks everyone for being here. I appreciate you being here. It's been a decent show. If you like the show, please hit the like button before you leave. If you haven't shared the program, please do so. And just as important, if you have not subscribed, please subscribe so the channel can grow. All right? And you can also drop comments when the show is over. And if you think there are things that I should be doing that I'm not doing, I am all for feedback. I'm a feedback baby, people. Just like the Amazons of the world, I love feedback. Because most of the time you can improve. If you have 200 people in the chat and they all think differently, they all provide ideas that I can leverage, I'm going to leverage the ideas. And that's just a hint also for the JFF. Because they have thousands of people they can leverage from. They should take the ideas that they believe can help them develop, can help them grow, can help them evolve, and effectuate those ideas. All right, everyone? Thanks for being here. Have a good night. Peace out. Kranky life is the best to be now. For the best sports talk, and it's free, yo. Kranky life will be your guiding light by keeping you informed both day and night. Kranky life, tell them. Kranky life, heed them. Kranky life, want them. Kranky life. From the courts to the field, we'll never lose because Kranky has the hottest news. With expert analysis, we break it down. Our in-depth coverage is best in town. Kranky life, tell them. Kranky life, heed them. Kranky life, want them. Kranky life. Kranky life where the sports is spicy and where we keep the discussion lively. Kranky life, get to know the name because Kranky analysis is never lame. Kranky life, give me my Kranky life. I want my Kranky life. Must have my Kranky life. Whether it's football or track and field, you know Kranky is at the wheel. So join the journey through victory and defeat and subscribe and don't miss a beat of Kranky life. Tell them, Kranky life. Heed them, Kranky life. Want them, Kranky life. If you're from England or USA, from Kingston or Bombay, from Kenya or Canada, Lagos or Havana, visit Kranky Live. Tune into Kranky Live. Like up Kranky Live. Subscribe to Kranky Live. Kranky Live coming to you on weekdays. Kranky Live sometimes on Sundays. Pull up a chair and take a seat because Kranky will always bring the heat. Kranky Live. Me say fi tell them Kranky life. Me say fi heed them Kranky life. On them Kranky life. Kranky life will be around. Kranky life is the best in town. Me say fi heed them. Me say fi want them. Me say fi heed them. Want them, heed them, want them. Kranky life. Kranky life. Heed them, want them, heed them. want them. Cranky, cranky, cranky life. Cranky, cranky, cranky life. Heed them, want them, heed them, want them, heed them, want them. Cranky, cranky, cranky life. Cranky, cranky, cranky life. Cranky. Heed them, want them, heed them, want them, heed, want, heed, want, heed them.